Hello and welcome to our weekly Spiritism program, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, all time zone in betweens, and all time zones around the world. Welcome again. Remember, we have these every Sunday night, starting at 4 o'clock Pacific on Kardec Radio Facebook page. Kardec Radio Facebook page is growing so fast. I'm so happy many people are listening to us. All sorts of different people speak on Kardec Radio. It is wonderful. Also, at the same time we speak on Kardec Radio Facebook page, we live stream, other people live stream this. I'm also streaming on Kardec Radio website, Kardec Radio. Remember, that is a free app you can put on your iPhone or Android phone. You just look up Kardec Radio. It's all here from Allan Kardec right there. Allan Kardec, the Spirits book. But put in Kardec Radio, and you'll download it for free. You get 24 hours of Spiritist programs you can listen to on your Android or Apple iOS phone. So you are in good shape. We can present that to you around the world. Okay, it does seem like I'm having trouble connecting to the Kardec Radio page, which is strange. We'll have to look at that later. So tonight, what are we talking about tonight? We're going more and more into our book, How to Live. And we are going into the 11th chapter, and actually, which is the 11th verse. And let me tell you what we've talked about before. This is the 10 verses that we've talked to before our topic tonight, which is a compassionate attitude. And that is trust in God and yourself, a serene conscience, time spent on productive matters, a constructive speech, a prayer allied to work, hope in action, an industrious patience, a dispassionate opinion, the blessing of comprehension, a participation in everyone's progress, and now tonight, a compassionate attitude. So what are these verses? So these were sent to Chico Xavier. He psychographed them from the Spirit Andre Luis. And each one of these is a building block for us to learn how to improve ourselves. Now, why do we have the Old Testament? Why do we have the New Testament? Why do we have Confucius and his sayings and Buddha and Socrates and everything? It is for the central purpose of why we are here, and that is to improve ourselves. Everything spawns from that fact. The earth was created by Jesus Christ as the governor of our planet, and other planets as well, was created for the purpose for us to improve ourselves. So when you have questions like, who is God? What is God? Why am I here? Why do bad things happen to good people? Good things happen to bad people? Why did my husband or wife leave me? Why did my friend and partner abscond with, the money from the business we did together? All those are here and done because of one central reason: for us to improve ourselves. Those are all trials we must go through. And to really understand more about the progress and the process and how the spirit world works is, I would start always from this book, the Spirit book. You notice I have a bookmark, as we always go over this book. Well, not always, but lately we've been going through this book when we do our at-home meeting, where we all meet. We do the same time at one night a week, and we all talk about, we take sections from the Spirit's book or maybe from the Gospel according to Spiritism, depending on what we feel like, and we read it and we talk about it as a complete family. So those are really wonderful. Adriana, hello. So those are really wonderful things to do as a family, and they mean a lot, especially for your children. It helps them understand, and it gets everyone with knowledge about the spirit world, why you're here, right? It says a lot. And I think one of the things that I love about this poem is each thing is built upon one under the other. And that's why here on verse 11, a compassionate attitude. Because as I said before, Spiritism was brought to us for us to learn more about why we are here. And remember, in the New Testament, Jesus said, I'm going to bring you a consoler, the Spirit of truth, to tell you more. And in the 1850s, Allan Kardec started telling us more, not himself personally. He codified. He's called the codifier of Spiritism. He posed, many questions, 1,092 questions just in the Spirits book itself, which I would recommend. At first, I want to tell everybody, you can get this on PDF. It doesn't cost you anything. That's how I got my first book. Of course, then I wanted to buy it after I started reading. So explain why we are here and what for. And as I said before at the beginning of the program, there really is one reason why the earth was created. It was created as a campus for us immature spirits, right? We may think we're mature, but in essence, we are very immature spirits. It is like the earth is a junior high or middle school, as they call it, where you've got 13 and 14-year-olds running around thinking they know everything, and yet they know very little. And when they're together, all they do is reinforce their own misconceptions. And the teachers try to tell them, no, think about this. And that's what the spirit world is doing to us. They're trying to tell us, no, you may want to think about this. This is what the Spirits book, this is the teacher like going into the classroom and saying, okay, can you read this chapter and understand, a little bit? Of course, I don't know what attention they get from those 13 and 14-year-olds, but it's probably about as much as we give our higher spirits to come to earth and trying to tell us what we should be doing. But for those who are interested in learning and actually improving, once you understand why you are here, and that is to completely remake your personality and your character, you are here to, and this is what this book is about, how to live. Oh, hi, Rosalind. And Susan, I wasn't looking at the screen. I was just talking. Once you understand why you're here, everything becomes clear. As I said before, everything that happens to you, there's a reason. And it's a good reason. No, you're not being punished. You're being put through lesson plans so you can learn. And why should you learn is you're here to rewire your brain and to create a personality and a character that anyone could be proud of. And most essentially, this is the main point, you create a personality and character that is able to handle tremendous power. Oh, Mara, hello, Mara Guire. You do not have an understanding. I mean, I've never read a fantasy book that comes close to what was exposed from the information from the Reverend G. Owen, which I talk about in my series of free books, Heaven and Below, the spirits and how we are guided by spirits, is we have thought is action in the spirit world. You can create and destroy and anything. What you think becomes reality. The Reverend G. Owen, the High Spirit said this, look, the earth is objective. I mean, things happen, you have no control over it. When you get into the levels of heaven, it's subjective. It means you create what you want. And then as you get even higher, it becomes sublime. It becomes over everything. So that is why, since we are being trained, and we are being trained to train ourselves, understand that. That's because we have free will. We can go as fast or slow in this school as we want. We can go in this planet and other planets and never graduate for millennia and millennia and millennia. But if you want to understand why we're here, now's the time to understand Spiritism, understand how to improve yourself. And as part of that improvement, let's talk about a compassionate attitude, because that is what the Spirit Andre Louis says we need to have in order to ascend. And the Spirit Andre Louis exhorts us to possess a compassionate attitude. Compassion, sympathy, empathy, concern, kindness are all attributes of superior spirits. No soul rises in heaven without these traits. Now, again, as I've said many times before, is that doesn't mean we have to be pushovers, right? It doesn't mean that we say, oh, we let anyone do whatever they want. Because remember, the spirits are more like teachers, right? They'll They still love you if you fail, but they will give you no nonsense advice. That doesn't mean people, oh, thank you, Doris. It doesn't mean people don't need strict parameters sometimes. It doesn't mean that you should let your 6-year-old write over all the walls because you want to be compassionate and kind and empathetic, because after all, 6-year-old wants to write on walls. No, your duty is to give people clear boundaries, and that means you walk away from some people, right? Some people you can't help. It's as Jesus said, you just kick off the dust and go to the next town. But you focus your mind, and you don't get angry, but you focus, right? You may get indignant, but that's not, you don't want the primitive emotions of anger, like lose your temper, which, look, I still do. I'm not saying I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but you want to be focused. And you want to be compassionate because you understand that those around you that make mistakes, and as you make mistakes too, and you've made the same mistakes in a previous life, they will all someday graduate. They will all someday become perfect. So compassion, sympathy, empathy, all that, they're not empty words to the higher angels, but they're part and parcel of their character. And this is why I wrote this book, How to Live, is so these things can become part and parcel of our character. If we can do that on earth, the high spirits tell us if we can transform on earth, because earth is the best place to actually mold your character, right? Over and over again in books by Chico Xavier, G. Val Owen, Yvonne Pereira, Joanna Devaldo Franco, who psychographed a lot from Joanna de Angelis and other spirits, is pain is the great teacher. Suffering is the great teacher. And of course, no one likes that. And the only reason you have to go through pain or suffering is because you didn't learn the easy way, right? And that's why I've gone through pain, suffering. I finally realized that, okay, well, I didn't learn by someone just telling me not to do that. It changes your whole character. And you're going to have, you have the ability to really experience that. And then you will deeply change what's in your heart. And we can do that. That means we're changing our character and personality. So these superior beings, these high spirits, they're capable of action and decisiveness too. So I'm trying not to say a compassionate attitude doesn't mean you're hesitant in your decisions or you're too nice, right? No, you are exactly what you should do, right? They know what they're doing. They are capable of planning difficult trials for mortals on earth and of overseeing complex projects, which could span eons. They do so with an eye for the betterment of mankind and ourselves, individuals too. It may not seem so for those of us in the middle of a personal tragedy or during conflicts between nations, that everything is planned with efficiency, a blend of edification and effectiveness, to enable humankind to arrive at the correct destination. We are urged to form the same attitude as these high spirits, to solve problems, to help others, to guide our friends along the right road as gently as possible, while at the same time ensuring success. Now, since we talk about we need to be compassionate, right? Compassionate attitude. Let's talk about what compassion is not. So in the book, Our Daily Bread, the Spirit Emmanuel writes, through the mediumship of Francisco Chico Xavier, what compassion should not be. This is what he said. Yes, Adriana, everything happens for a reason. Absolutely. This is what Emmanuel wrote. Much is said about compassion, but when we make references to this virtue, it's hard to distinguish between compassion and lowering oneself. I'll help this man, but he's an addict. I'll help this woman, but she's ignorant and bad. I'll take pity on this brother, but he's cruel and ungrateful. I feel for this person, but he's no good. Such statements are repeated all the time by lips that claim to be Christian. In fact, on earth, we normally encounter only the compassion that is comprised of a soft voice with thorny hands. It dispenses honey and poison. It puts bombs on wounds and then tears them open. It extends open arms and charges them payment for recognition. It rescues and then pummels. It supports and then discourages. It offers kind words and then hurls hostile retorts. It appeases the hunger of life's travelers with loaves full of bile. True compassion, however, is the daughter of love. It wastes no time in pointing out evil. It is concerned too much with the good to trade it for trifles, and it knows that each minute in the economy of life is precious. The gospel does not refer to false compassion that is full of illusions and demands. Those who display enough strength to embrace the Christian life find the resources to criticism, and they know how to sow the good, water its seeds, tend to its shoots, and awaits its fruitage. So, what did Emmanuel just tell us? He is saying that many of us confuse compassion with wishing well and feeling empathy for a person, combined with trying to forcibly rectify the mistakes and lead them onto a better path. Many of us think it's the act of pointing out what you did wrong and expecting contrition for their errors that lead us to a compassion that is not really compassion, right? We like to say, oh, no, you did this wrong. And you want them to say, oh, thank you for saving me, or yes, I'm a fool. No, has that ever worked with you, to have someone to point out what you did wrong and then try to make you feel little because of it? No, it just makes you defensive. But if you can do it more where you're trying to really open your heart and guide someone, right? And say, this might be a better idea. Try this, right? Don't try and tell people what to do with a condescending attitude. But I know that most people are genuinely trying to help, but a lot of us can't resist demonstrating our superiority and determination that our way is the only way to recover from a tragedy or a blunder. We know that. But what we should understand is that the root cause of the misfortune the person is going through and their spiritual maturity at the time of their transgression. By analyzing these two factors, right, let's kind of think, what is the spiritual maturity of that person, right? And what is the root cause? If we look at those two factors, we may just be, we don't have to be perfect, right? We just have to be kind of within the ballpark. We should comprehend that forcing a lesson on a particular person is actually counterproductive. And I want to remind everybody, we don't have to give the lesson. The spirit world has all that figured out, but we are tools to supply information and give help in that lesson along the way for many people all around us. All of us are at different points in our journey to become perfect spirits. We live on a planet of atonement because our character is not yet developed. For this reason, and for the choices and actions we made in our previous lives, an event will be planned by the spirit world to have a specific effect upon our psyche. The event will, if the person is open to learning, repair a character flaw, or at least promote a better understanding of how to behave in the future. This is why when the book I wrote, The Problem is a Solution, we really need to see what is happening to us and understand that that problem really is the solution to fix that character blemish, right? To repair that mistake we made in our character by repeating the same type of behavior and attitudes in previous lives. And if we can repair it on earth, it's so much more effective. So if a person is a relatively mature spirit amongst the beings on the planet of atonement, the lesson will have a greater chance of success without our misguided interference to try to hammer that lesson home to someone we're trying to help. A holier-than-thou attitude toward the sufferer will only serve to cloud the issue and subtract from what the experience should have truly meant. It is like watching a movie and your friend spends the whole time narrating the film for you. That would have destroyed the feeling that the movie was supposed to generate. The spirit world knows best how to teach us. Let them teach. So if a person is recently graduated from a primitive existence, the lesson will mean something else than we think it may mean. It may be more of a hard knock, a stimuli that acts as a warning, like a slap on the hand for a toddler who tries to run out onto the road. Again, trying to guide the person to a higher meaning of that episode in an abrupt manner. But if we do that, we'll only arouse emotions of defensiveness and take away the focus from the lesson at hand. In essence, those immature spirits aren't ready to objectively analyze their action. Now, they'll think back in the future lives, they shall be able to analyze their actions in the lives to come. So be patient. Now, what is compassion meaning to the spirit? Now, we said what it isn't. I mean, it's not compassion with I am holier than thou, all right, or pointing out what you did wrong. It's letting people learn and being part of the lesson as created by the spirit world. Now, let's go compassion amongst the spirits. So, compassion with the correct message and subtle or situational counseling will be of great benefit and actually speed the process. Another key word is situational counseling, right? And being subtle. Emmanuel leads us to what compassion should be. This is what Emmanuel says. Have compassion when you analyze the less favorable behavior of a brother or sister, and you will find the right path. Compassion is the doorway to access the foundation of a solution to any moral problem in life. In truth, I tell you, we are all surrounded by companions who are riddled with anguish and restlessness. Do not aggravate their suffering. Some of these companions, believed to be righteous, fell prey to remorse. Others confused tyranny for vigilance and converted themselves into executioners of their beloved ones. Others still assumed that affection was built solely from pleasure and ended up unbalanced. Others imagined that destitution should be the foundation of economy and succumbed to avarice. And yet others understood that divine providence existed exclusively to sustain personal desires and transfigured their own faith into a scourge to their fellow beings. Reflect upon the mistakes to which they succumbed without awareness of their situation and have compassion on them. If you cannot relieve their distress, weave a veil of hope to protect them from the attacks by forces of darkness. God is the justice present in the exercise of laws that reveal him, but he is also compassion in the expression of the love that guarantees his omnipresence. Those who have gone astray know that they have deviated from the right path without it being necessary for us to expose their shortcomings with accusations and censorship. We know in great detail the somber place where our minds dwell when we fall prey to delinquency. May the sufferings from guilt be sufficient for our liberation. Pain exists to show us that there is no imbalance without possibilities for rectification. And divine wisdom, which made us immortals, reigns sovereignly at the foundation of equilibrium. For this reason, the Lord has decreed the unforgettable statement to be attributed to him in all revelations of truth. I want compassion, not sacrifice. So what did Emmanuel tell us? The vital point of his message is to relieve their suffering. And if that is not possible, give them reason for hope in the future. So it's not telling them what they did wrong. It's telling them what they could have done right as an option. It's giving them hope that things will be better in the future. It makes them feel like others have made that mistake. So giving them reason for hope in the future, this accomplishes a change of focus from self-pity to a more positive outlook, thusly allowing the person in need to think clearly about the entire dreadful episode and derive the lessons required from the experience. Instead of beating themselves up of how stupid they were, they can think, okay, this was just one more thing I had to learn, and now I know what not to do. And in the future, things will be better. I will be smarter. Lending a sympathetic ear, a shoulder to cry on, a mutual commiseration, or helping instill a new set of plans for a bright future are all ways to achieve a compassionate attitude. So how do we do that? So understanding promotes compassion. So the first step toward compassion is to understand, to fully emphasize where the person entails an acknowledgement of the person and the circumstances surrounding him. The spirit Joanna de Angelis, who has said, great things in her book, she explains the importance of understanding. Because if we really understand, then we know how to shape our compassion. Okay, this is what she says. Understanding is the ability that best contributes to success in human relationships. because it validates the other person's positive and negative qualities. It reflects great spiritual development through which it offers support and guidance to the one who seeks it in difficult situations. Understanding distends solidarity, providing the necessary therapeutic resources according to the needs of the moment. Without agreeing with everything that is said or rejecting it outright, understanding benefits the listener who is then truly heard. Humans are instinctively gregarious and need to be with one another in healthy interaction in order to receive and provide stimuli that lead to their development. Due to numerous factors, human understanding regarding other people's limitations and problems have become scarcer, something necessary yet rare. Imperiously eager to communicate, individuals look for relationship and yearn to disclose themselves to each other. Yet the human heart dreads being exposed. What they are is their troubling treasure. Their actual way of being is different from the image they portray and fear losing. This is so because they do not expect to receive understanding. There's so much wisdom, right? There's so much wisdom there. And of course, our parents, yeah, maybe it's, it depends on your parents, but usually you expose yourself to your mother and your father. And as you get teenagers, maybe not, but then as you get older again, they understand you and love you, and you don't mind that. But other friends, you don't really want to expose what's happening. But sometimes there's that friend or that mentor or whatever who you could believe you could tell anything, and they would not go tell other people. They wouldn't go gossip about you, and they wouldn't look at you thinking, boy, are you stupid, right? You understand, and you see people like that, and you want to communicate with them because they give you very valuable and positive feedback, and they don't tear you down, because that's all of our fear, right? Is to be told how how unimportant and stupid we are. That we're all afraid of that. Yet that person will not do that. That person will help you figure out a way ahead. And the way they figure it out and the way they help you is what we just said before, what Emmanuel and others have said. And that is they look things, they don't blame you. They try to sympathize with you. They try to give you hope for the future, right? Those are the people that we seek out. And what we need to do is make ourselves that type of person. Make ourselves a person who they tell, oh, well, that person, we can tell them anything. They never they never gossip, right? They've never said, if you're in a group of people and you're talking about other people and you're pointing out everything they ever did wrong, right? And you're making fun of them, are people going to think you're compassionate? Are people going to come to you when they have problems? Of course not. Because they know that at the first chance you get, you're going to expose their weaknesses to everyone else in the group. That is why we're trying to reprogram ourselves not to do that, right? You want to be that shining light. You want to be that person like, oh, I can talk to Mary, for say, because that person never, I've never heard her say anything bad about anybody. And everyone I've talked to who's talked to Mary says she gives great advice. That's what we need to become. And we have to recognize that everyone is shy of exposing their true selves. In any rational review of our character, we identify weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, right? We abhor demonstrating our naked self. We prefer to dress it up and make it look presentable. And we like to see idealized forms of ourselves, not the tattered true image, which is all fine, right? For we should all strive for the character we desire to be. I mean, that's a good way of doing it, is to set up what we want to be and try to achieve that. But we do require friends who act as touchstones to guide us to that correct destination. We want to be that friend, and a true friend is not a sycophant, but a pillar of understanding and compassion. They know when to feed our ego, when it has recently been bruised, to not allow us to be laid low for long, but they also know when we need to remove the veil before our eyes and see ourselves in stark contrast to our idealized self. Only then can we find the right path to improvement. Now, as I say all this, and as I said before, is when in the spirits book, they ask, what are the hardest type of trials? And what they said is to be rich and powerful. And, I'm sure a lot of people out there say, well, I like that trial. But actually, think about that. Is a person who is rich and powerful will not have true friends around them. They'll have friends, so-called friends, who will come and want something there. And they will tell that person whatever they need or want to be told, not need to be told, what want to be told. And then they will reward those people who tell them what they want to be told. That is a great mistake by not everybody who's rich, right? Those are people who probably are failing their test. And I'm sure I know I've done that in the past too, because I've been told I failed tests as, when I wanted money more than helping people. So it's doubly hard to keep your humility and to keep your openness, right? You've all read about, the great people in history are the ones that, had people around them that would tell them the truth. Marco Polo, Kublai Khan, the Kublai Khan, right? He wanted him around because Marco Polo was one of the few people to actually tell them the truth. Everyone else was just a sycophant. So that is important for us to do that. And that also means sometimes we may not advance because we're telling some people things they don't want to hear, but that's okay. You know what that means? That means we supplied an opportunity for that person to hear someone who was compassionate and yet told the truth, but they rejected it. We supplied what we needed to do in that person's little path, right? We have our own. So Joanna describes how to be a true friend, a companion who is not merely beside another, but a team member. Like a mountain climbers who are strapped together while one is ascending, the other holds the safety line. This is what she says. The world is full of deaf people talking with one another, of mute socialization being expressed in intense silent interactions. There is much talk about nothing resolving a broad spectrum of problems that remain. When people approach you to talk, try to listen and register their words. Perhaps you cannot offer the best advice or do what is expected of you, but quite often they only want a listening ear. Give them your attention and you will encourage them, making them feel worthy of interest. If they decide to trust you and open up, respect their problems and help them if you can. On your part, overcome the fear of opening up. Of course, you cannot neglect prudence or balance, but it is healthy to dialogue and unveil the panels hidden by the ego or masked to reflect unrealistic images. As a frail human being, living honestly with others will contribute effectively to your inner harmony. So be empathetic and patient, a fraternal therapist. Do not create stereotypes or label people with images that are but a passing phase. We are all undergoing continuous transformations, and we are not always today what we seem to have been yesterday. New experiences and lessons have been added to the lives of others, as in the case with you. It is the inexorable imperative of progress in action. Joanna always packs a lot of information in a few paragraphs, and she leaves us with that in understanding that people around you will in turn make you a better person. You will treat yourself as you treat others and forgive yourself for your trespasses. Isn't that what some of the hardest things that we do as we become more spiritually mature? I think one of the hardest thing is, when you're very primitive, you look back on terrible things you did and go, oh, right. And then as you become a bit more spiritually mature, you are just like, you are so guilty. And yet, so as we tell other people to forgive ourselves, we start forgiving ourselves too, because we know that doesn't do any good. And Joanna tells us, when you've done something wrong, just make it like it's an arrow out of the quilt. It's gone, right? Analyze it, move on. So therefore, that will help us improve, right? We will know what should be for corrected and then forgotten. Just as you should concentrate on growth for your friend, the same applies to you. The past is past. One more lesson learned and evaluated. Now move on to the next lesson. And as you learn to treat yourself by treating others, your skills will rapidly increase. You will be able to separate the person from the deed. That's very important. Separate the person from the deed, right? Someone who robbed, oh, that robbery is such a rotten person, right? Because that person robbed. And you really need to see is, oh, that person made a mistake, right? Eventually, they will learn not to rob. They are a work in progress, as are we. We may be a little bit, farther along in the grades, but that person shall one day become a wonderful spirit. So you'll see that person as a distinct personality traveling through planned events, all manufactured to improve that personality. And they may go through events that are really tough and heart-rending. They may be close to you. They may be like, oh my God, if I could just help that person. And yet that's what a compassionate attitude with wisdom and all the things you talked about before is you will understand that person needed or needs to go through whatever trial they're going through in order to help them. And sometimes you just have to be a spectator. Other times you can help. Look at your conscience, meditate about it, try to keep that open. The most important thing we can do here on the School of Earth is to give ourselves, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, 5 minutes, every night or morning or whatever, is give ourselves a little bit of meditation, pray a little bit, whatever, how you want to do it. Keep in connection with the spirit world because you'll always get signs and signals. It's so much better, right? If you go to school and you never listen to the teacher and you never even want to talk to the teacher, how different is that versus you engage with the teacher, you try to follow what the teacher is telling you, it's the best. And this is the same way for us on earth, is to try and meditate and get those signs and signals from the spirit world. And I talk about that also in my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, about how I saw and missed many signs and signals and how now I'm starting to see them. That doesn't mean I see everything, but I'm starting to understand. So as you learn to treat yourself by treating others, your skills will rapidly increase, as I said before. And why do we do that? Because not only we want that other person, right, to improve themselves and become a better person, also to become a better personality. Now, I use that word personality because I see it a lot in Spiritism. And they use that as they describe humans and spirits by the spirit messengers, right? And it goes beyond our definition, which is a set of behavior patterns, how we think and how we feel. And I think by looking at that word personality, it tells us really what we are. This is important. Personality, according to the spirit world, is the total encapsulation of our unique energy life force. It is what makes you you. It is the consciousness, the ego, the superego, the id, everything. It is all that is immortal. It is your programming. It is how you've gone through your analog and digital type of stimuli, how you handle everything. It is all that you take with you when you leave your body behind. And it is that which is constantly connected with the entire spirit universe and every other being within it. We are all connected. When you come back to be a spirit on your regular life, your real life, your spirit life, not here as we're here, on earth for a very short time in the span of our immortal lives, you understand that you are this body of logic that you've created, and you've changed your personality, your character, your behavior over life after life after life. And why is that? Why is that important? Because that's the power, right? Because your personality are thoughts, and thought is action. And as you go up the levels of heaven, your thoughts are become more and more powerful. You can create. Jesus Christ with other spirits created this whole solar system. That is power, right? So hence, to understand, we must know the facts of what we and everyone around you are. To understand is to ignore the outer occasion and concentrate on their personality, improving that little spark of energy, which must be composed of highly complex logic, is the aim of understanding and compassion. Now, What is the message of compassion? In the book, Jesus in the Home, dictated to Chico Xavier by the spirit Neo Lucio, each chapter recounts a dialogue that Jesus held with his disciples while in one of their homes. Usually these gatherings were held at Peter's house. Now, Neo Lucio, with permission from Christ, was allowed to present to us how Jesus talked to his disciples. And again, this is what is so wonderful about Spiritist literature. You are hearing these things of really what Jesus talked to his disciples. I mean, there are so much more knowledge. This is, when you read the Bible, I'm sure there's many people smarter than I am. My understanding of it is like, it's just like the parables, right? That's why the gospel according to Spiritism is so good. It explains really what was meant by the parables, is that you just learn so much about it. Really, how are these people coming to earth and what are they actually doing? And that's why the Spiritist literature, it's just great. And just to remind everyone, you can go to my website, you click on Allan Kardec's picture, it'll take you to the EDICEI bookstore. And I think actually they're having a special now in December 2018. If you're watching this, they have all sorts of books, and of course you can get them on Amazon.com if you want to do that. They got books on Kindles, but they're the paperback books are priced actually better than Amazon.com. So go to their website. There's a lot of information there. Of course, then I have my books on my website, nwspiritism.com. I have them on the right side where you can purchase this books on Amazon, Kindle, or paperback, however you would like it. So anyway, but it's so exciting. I always get excited when I see a new Spiritist book in English. So getting back to Neo Lucio with Jesus in the Home, and one of Chico Xavier's, or Francisco C. Xavier, if you want to look him up as an author. So these conversations show how difficult it was for people at the time to internalize the need for true Christian compassion. We forget how strange it was what Jesus was telling us. This is why when Jesus came 2,000 years ago, he had to speak in parables, because if he spoke how, Allan Kardec codified what was told by the spirits, people would have just said no, right? No, that's ridiculous. I don't believe it at all. That's why a lot of these things, that's why Spiritism tells us that the spirit world can only tell us what we can absorb at our cultural and technological level at the time. That's why we're always being told more things. The spirit tells us the only things that are eternal are the messages of love and charity and compassion from Jesus. The other messages you take of what was given to the culture at the time. So in chapter 47, is called The Message of Compassion. And after a discussion about the hardships of dealing with all sorts of people, John asked Jesus, how are they supposed to handle the situation when people reject him so rudely and abruptly? And Jesus tells them this story. This is what he said. Take pity on the slanderer and work for the good of all, the heavenly messenger responded, smiling, because love undoes the darkness of evil and work destroys disrespectful thoughts. Master, asked James, the son of Zebedee, how are we going to act when somebody brutally attacks us? Christ said, those who are led by violence must either be crazy or poisoned. Help them regain their senses. Lord, asked Judas with fiery eyes, and when those who offend us are clothed with respectable authority, whether as a prince or a priest, with all the appearance of a conscientious and normal leader. So the serpent, what Jesus said, the serpent can hide itself in a bunch of flowers, and there are worms that live in the most beautiful looking fruit. Those in authority who show that they are violent and cruel are ill. Take pity on them because they are sleeping in a nightmare of dark illusions from which they'll have to awaken someday. Help them as best as you can and continue on your way, acting for the happiness of all. Another one asks, Master, when our house is hit by a crime, what am I supposed to do when faced with someone who's betrayed my trust, who has dishonored my name, or who has shed blood in my home? And Jesus explained, pity every type of criminal and do not desire to break the law that your neighbor has disregarded, because both the persecutor and the criminal in any situation carry a blazing fire with them. One wrong does not right another, and blood does not cleanse blood. Forgive and help Time is responsible for giving back to everyone in accordance with their own effort. Now, let me stop right there. When he says one wrong does not right another, and blood does not cleanse blood, that was completely just foreign. Socrates was killed 300 years and some before Christ. Socrates said, one right does not right another. I paraphrase, and just because you have more power doesn't mean you can use it. He was killed because of that, because they said, "Oh, you're corrupting our youth." No, in the older world, is you had power, you had the right to do anything you wanted to. That was it. So he came with this foreign message. Confucius again, Buddha did the same thing, right? These people came with these messages that, you hear the words, but that's not our culture. Now, it's becoming our culture, and it's not in everyone's mind, but you can't believe how much people say, "Oh, no one's gotten better." Well, actually, the world's gotten a lot better. This progress has been made. But let me go back to the story from Jesus. Then Bartholomew cut in and said, "Master, what are we to do about the judge who condemns us unfairly?" And Jesus responded, "Have mercy on him and continue to cooperate for the good of all of those around you. There is always a higher judge who analyzes those who criticize or condemns, and beyond one horizon are broader and more luminous horizons unfold." Then Thaddeus asked, "Lord, what are we supposed to do about the woman we love when she suffers a moral downfall?" And Jesus gazed at him tenderly and asked in turn, "Isn't the inner sufferings that afflict her day and night punishment enough?" Then a silence fell over the group, and when he saw that the disciples didn't have any more questions, the Lord concluded. This is what he said: "If we intend to banish all ills from the world, we must cultivate the love that sympathizes with the service that edifies for the happiness of all. Do not deceive yourselves. Time is an inflexible instrument of the law that gives to each of us according to our deeds. No one can hope to right a crime by practicing other crimes, because time changes everything on earth with the fire of suffering or with the ice of death." So what was said by Jesus in multiple ways was that all of us are subject to the laws of karma and reincarnation, that whatever a person's transgressions, the process to repair the wrong deeds and fix their character will be handled by the spirit world in the trials that we are assigned to. It is not our place or function to determine how to renovate another person's character. Jesus' disciples fell into the same thing that all of us do. They examine the deed first, and by weighing the act, they set in the minds the worth of the person. Jesus tells us to turn this around. We should examine the person and determine the circumstances in which the error was made. Whatever wrong was committed will be rectified by successive incarnations and plans for each life. Nothing is hidden, and no action does not have a reaction. Thusly, we can only have compassion, for we know they are traveling through difficult waters. Waves of previous missteps are crashing upon them as they often make wrong decisions, owing to their lack of spiritual maturity. Future lives will right all wrongs, and they will eventually emerge as a wonderful soul. And if we understand that, and we understand a compassionate attitude, and we go through this, how to live, what do we really achieve? We achieve inner peace, because what is mostly disturbs us and gives us agony? We have stress over, "Oh, I can't stand that person," or this thing did to me, and you think about how you can right that wrong, right? Or get revenge. If you just get rid of all of those thoughts and think, "Okay, well, that person's going through that trial, and somehow I intersected with that person, and I got that happen to me, and I must have done that to somebody else, and now I know what it feels like. And thank you, Lord, for giving me that experience, and now I know I will never do that again." If you can think that way, your stress just disappears. Your stress your body becomes, your vibrations become harmonic, right? Your stress goes away. You let other people do their things, right? You look at them, it doesn't matter if they're your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, your parents. You look at them all as souls on a journey. And sometimes you just have to let them live through those tragedies. And know that, this will be good for them. The spirit world doesn't give anybody anything for punishment. It's all for edification. And you just have to, and they say, okay, we'll just hope that person learns. Pray for them. Say, I hope that person learns through this trial and becomes a stronger person because of it. That is all we can, sometimes that is all we can do. Give that listening ear, as we said before. But sometimes that's all you can do is just sit back and let the trial proceed. And then when the trial ends, because the trials will always end, the spirit world has said over and over again, you're not given trials in which there is no way out. Now, sometimes the way out is death, right? Very, very rarely, but sometimes that is needed because that is how you're supposed to end. But there's always a way out, and there's always a way to be victorious. So remember, that's very important. And then help that person be victorious. Help that. And what is victory? Victory is learning and changing your personality as a result of that trial and changing yourself in the correct way. And changing yourself, changing your personality is why we're on earth. And we're on earth is to learn to control our thoughts and to listen to our conscience, right? Filter everything through that. So I want to thank everybody for being with me tonight. Again, remember, we will be on Sunday till probably for the week before Christmas, and then we'll probably take a couple of days off. So I want to bless everyone. God bless all of you. Go out. Please share these Kardec radio streaming from me and other people. Tell people to go on to my site, nwspiritism.com. Share that. Share on Spiritism and the spirit world around us, the Facebook site. You can, and then I'll put this video on to my YouTube and BitChute channel. Of course, there are links to that on nwspiritism.com. Please sign up and tell everyone and help everyone. Be compassionate and lend a ear. And thank you, everyone, on the show tonight. God bless. Bye-bye.